everyone.
It's Sophie.
And it's Daisy.
Welcome to episode 1. Thanks for joining us. So today we wanted to talk about how we got here, right? So we're both in each other's first relationships, and it's been a crazy first relationships with
women.
and kind of first real relationship, honestly, too. But it's been a crazy 2 years. It's been I don't even know how to explain it, honestly, but a lot of ups and downs, a lot of emotions, a lot of doubts, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion.
Realizing your sexuality brings up a lot of doubts.
And it's hard to navigate. It's easy to maybe want to undermine that and say, oh, it's been great, but it really hasn't been that great. I mean, it's a lot of great moments, but it's been really hard.
But we've made it 2 years.
We made it
and counting. So we want to pick apart the pieces and slow down a little bit and backtrack about our personal experiences with realizing our sexualities and how we navigated them and go from there. So I'll let Sophie pop in a little bit.
Yeah. So I guess just first to start, I think it's really important to share this type of information because if this is what I would have wanted 2 years ago. I searched so many podcasts and I couldn't find anything that talked about, okay, I'm in a place where I've been dating guys my whole life. I'm kind of attracted to girls, but I can't figure out what to do. What do I do? And everything I looked for just wasn't fitting, and I couldn't find articles. To this day, I still can't find articles.
No articles that will help us whenever we're having a debacle.
Right?
Ever.
About like, oh, I have internalized homophobia from my parents that don't accept. What do I do? Like, there's nothing. Sometimes I feel there's nothing out there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what got us to wanting to record this specific episode, is wanting to share that for other people out there who might be trying to navigate. So just to, take a step back, I was dating girls. So just to take a step.
This is a hard topic for Sophie.
Yeah. So just to take a step back, Daisy's my first girlfriend. I'm 28, she's 26, and I've been dating guys my whole life. I knew I was attracted to women. I never really understood it, but I knew it was there. In college, I felt attracted to them. And honestly, going back to when I was like 13 and a camp counselor, I had attraction towards women. It was something I didn't really understand, though, and it took me some time. It took me moving to the city, graduating law school, working to figure out, okay, who do I really want to date? And it was a very, very slow progression. And once it's kind of like ripping a Band-Aid off. Once I made the decision to do it, I just went full on in, and ever since then, it's been a lot of emotion.
It was even a progression when we started dating. There was a lot of Band-Aid ripping that continued to happen. Like, I was just kind of like the first big Band-Aid. And then there was a lot of other areas of your life that you had to allow this relationship to flow into.
So true, yeah.
And you've made a lot of progress.
The big Band-Aid.
I'm the big Band-Aid.
Yeah, well, I guess what's most important for my story is I come from a family where I was told my whole life, marry a man, very successful investment banker. He's going to provide for you. You'll have kids with him. That's just my life. That's my story. And that's kind of the storyline I was living up until maybe age 26. That's what I wanted. I was in law school, ready, to pursue other relationships with men. And at this point, I really had great relationships with guys. I have been attracted to guys my whole life. I've loved men, and that's what made this so hard. I have loved guys, but I'm attracted to girls. What does that mean? How is that possible? I don't have any friends out there who we're all in the sorority together at BU, and we're all like, frat parties, let's go and dance with the guys. I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me because I like guys.
Well, I think that's what being bisexual, being bisexual and then like dating a woman, that's what makes merging, quote unquote, your past life and your current life so difficult, because you identified as straight so much of your life, and then it's hard to bring this new piece of you into the rest of your life, which it's so possible with like the right friends and the right family, and like it's possible, but it's more of an internal battle than it is an external battle. I feel like with most people in our life.
That's one thing I've really realized throughout this process is I had so many fears going into this.
Oh, yeah.
I used to download Tinder and Bumble and delete my profile because I was so scared that people, my friends from college, from law school, would see me and judge me. so much of that fear has subsided in the past 2 years because I've received such love and support from people around me, minus my parents, unfortunately, but you realize that so much of that fear is in your head.
And just to bring some polarity from a little bit of your background, I come from a different background, super untraditional family, was never told to do X, Y, or Z. I never thought part of my realizing my sexuality, it was never suppressed because I didn't think it would be accepted. It was more so I just had no clue. I mean, I'd had a few experiences where I thought, okay, maybe I'm gay. I was sitting at a Broadway show and I was just struck with so much anxiety. This was like 3 years ago where I was like, oh my God, am I gay? And then I never thought about that ever again, which I think sums it up.
Something in the Broadway show bring that up?
No, it was Dear Evan Hansen. It had nothing to do with sexuality.
I look back and I feel
Is that weird?
Yeah, no, but it makes sense. I feel like I had so many thoughts that came in at random moments. I'd be at the grocery store, like, randomly, and when I was, like, 23, and I would just think something of, like, do I like girls? And then it would go away.
You had the thought, but it was like someone else was in your brain having that thought. Like, it had nothing to do with
right? I felt so detached from it, and it's so interesting, and this is something we'll talk about in later episodes, and I realized in life, with so many things in life, we don't know it's hard to know yourself. It really, really is hard to know yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're so influenced by people around us. And for me, I was taught that it's not my dad straight up told me that he would not accept a child who was gay or who liked women.
So you always clung to that. You clung to that identity of like, I like men, and that's it. So when you allow that thought to bloom of I like women, you start to question your identity. You start to question everything because you're like, who the fuck am I?
Right.
I don't know who I am anymore because what I thought to be true at one point is no longer true. So, and I think we've had this thought a lot of like, and granted, like we've lived in our apartment and not laughed that much because of the pandemic, but you start to question every construct there is, and it's kind of laughable. But it's a weird.
It's laughable, but it's freeing.
It is freeing, yeah. And we're not doing it alone, which I imagine that would be even more difficult.
Right. For Daisy and I,
we see eye to eye.
Yeah, we've been going through this together, this awakening, and that's what's been so helpful to go through this journey of being in a relationship. But I think it's also just important because there's people out there who are going through this not in a relationship. So it's important just to talk about generally like what it was like on an individual level. So just to zoom out, what year did we meet?
It was summer of 2020.
Summer of 2020. So
great, yeah.
At this time, I had not told half my friends that I liked girls. At this point, no one knew. My sister, my best friend, Sarah, who is my sister, 7 years younger than me, did not even know.
Which, for you listening, like that's an insane deal. Like I've never met someone who's closer with another human being.
It's like I was living a double life, honestly.
You really were living a double life. And I think a lot of your friends from college or like you'll have friends who be like, yeah, like Sophie was just like kind of sus.
Kind of sus. Yeah, that's the fear taking over me. So I finally okay, just to backtrack, I've been dating girls, like going on dates with girls for the past so I started in college, like kind of, going on Tinder and then deleting it.
Having very strange one-off experiences.
Random experiences of nothing real though, like going on a date and with a girl, but like I didn't think anything of it, honestly. At this time, I was like actively pursuing guys at college.
So would you say if you were asked at this point in time, like, oh, are you bisexual? Would you confidently say no?
Hard no.
Oh, okay, even though you just went on a date with a girl.
Right? No, hard no, because I wasn't.
Wow.
That's what I thought.
Is that denial?
Yeah.
Is that what it was for
That's
you?
denial.
Do you think that's why it took so long for you to?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I didn't know that I could feel that thing, so I thought, I'm attracted to a woman, but that doesn't mean anything because I fit that other box. All the boxes are checked. I'm attracted to this guy. I like these guys. I want to go on dates with these guys.
You could ignore it. You could ignore like the other one was working for you.
The other one was working for me.
Yeah.
So that I didn't think anything of it at that point. So I go through college. I graduate college. I moved to New York City. I go to law school. And at this point, I was in a very serious, not relationship, but I had very, very strong feelings for a guy through most of law school. And that lasted for a while.
Yeah.
Daisy's laughing because she's like, I know who you're talking about. And that lasted for a while. So that probably lasted up until I graduated law school in 2018. At this point, like, I was going on I started going on Hinge dates with girls in New York City, but it was one of the things where I'd go and I'd hook up with girls and I'd be attracted to them. And I didn't think it really meant anything. Like, I couldn't really process it. I was just like, okay, I'm attracted to women, but I also, at the same time, I'm going on dates with guys. And then,
would you, like, okay, say it was a Friday night. Would you go on a date with a guy and, like, on Saturday go on a date with a girl?
Yeah.
You would. Wow. That's a wild time.
Right?
That's been a crazy experience.
And that's when, at this point, where I'm truly living double life, because I'd be telling my friends about these guys I'm going out with, but I'm not telling them about the girls I'm going out with.
Yeah, I remember we were at some place in the West Village. We were on a date, and I remember you telling me about how you had an anxiety attack on a date because you're with this woman on a date, but you saw someone you knew from your hometown, and you were like, "Oh my god, they're gonna see me on a date with the girl."
Well, that's
it must have been taxing.
Growing up in Westchester and then moving to New York City, it's like everyone you know from high school is like one corner down in the street. It's a constant running in. You're constantly running into people. So yeah, I had a lot of fear about that. So
you brought a lot of fear into our initial relationship with it too.
I did.
A lot for a long time too.
I mean, it's still kind of there. Honestly.
Yeah, but it's not as strong.
It's not as strong, definitely. So it was easier to suppress the feelings when I wasn't in a relationship because I didn't have to address them. I could go on dates and hook up with girls and text them and have crushes on them, but it wasn't really real.
So what made you... Okay, so what you've told me so far is that there is the box of being straight, dating men, living that specific life, and then there is the box of... Well, it's not really a box, but dating women and loving, that kind of thing. What made you leave the box of I can date men and I can live this specific life, go down this route? What made you leave that behind? What made you what pushed you to get out of that?
Nothing initially, honestly, because it was as if I had like one foot stopped pulling me the other way and then the other foot going forward to the other direction, and nothing was really harmonized. So we started dating and I was like, oh, I like this girl. And it was kind of my first relationship with a woman. I never know, is it girl or woman? I feel weird saying girl. I don't know. Woman, whatever you are. You're not like a woman to me, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm me.
Yeah, you're you. First relationship with a woman that felt real, and it started to progress really fast, and this had never happened to me before. So I'm going through this relationship before we started physically dating of like, wow, I like her, and at this point I don't know, I kind of was like, well,
if I can interject, we'd met on Hinge, we were texting a lot, and basically what you told me was that, not then, but what you've told me now is that the only reason you really liked me was because I was giving you a ton of attention and I was putting a ton of effort into talking to you.
Yeah. For anyone dating in New York City out there, dating girls is not any easier than dating guys. Like, it's hard. And I was going on a lot of dates and I was kind of looking for that mutual connection and validation, and I finally got that from you. I hadn't even met you at this point, and I really liked you there was quarantine. I really liked you, like, texting and stuff. Yeah. And then we finally met, and then I guess that's when it really hit. We met, we went to Hudson, we effectively just started hanging out all the time, and that's when things really progressed.
Yeah.
We'll talk about my parents finding out in a later episode.
It's too much for this episode.
It's too much. But...
So I would say the difference between Sophie and I, she was in denial about her sexuality. I just didn't realize it. So as soon as I was coming into understanding this, I, of course, was like, all right, I'm going to tell everyone I know. So I proceeded to FaceTime everyone I know. And like, maybe that was a little awkward looking back on it.
Well, we hadn't even met yet.
No, I was just texting you and I was like, oh my God, I have feelings for this girl. And then I'm telling everyone I know.
I remember we hadn't met yet. And you're like, I just want to let you know, like, I'm going to tell everyone I know. I was like, okay, good to go. Go girl. I was like, all right, Daisy.
I called my parents.
Yeah,
and I told them. And
they said, they were just like,
they were like, all right, okay, cool. Like, good for you. We're happy for you. It was...
Shout out to Rob and Deb.
Yeah, they are super supportive.
But it's interesting. There is a difference of, you have these two people, me and you both. We grew up, we were both dating guys. One of us was in denial. The other one of us just didn't No.
Well, I was never fed, you need to marry this man and you need to have this career. I was never told any of that. So there was a lot of bridging the gap for you. Whereas for me, I didn't have to work through any of that because there was no expectation set for me.
Okay, so when you were in college, did you have any of these thoughts in college? Attraction towards...
Oh, honestly, no. I felt really unseen by guys in college. I don't know if it's just a college thing, but I always struggled with it.
Definitely college.
Okay. I just felt like I was like never, maybe because I just had to force connections with guys, but like also college guys are just not.
They're not it, man.
No, I was always more about like connection. Like that scares off any college guy. So
when you were in college, were you thinking that you liked women?
No, never. Like,
because, okay,
never.
So when I was in,
I wasn't ever thinking about it. I mean, like, yes, I would have the occasional thought, and it's funny looking back on it, watching like Handmaid's Tale, and I don't remember the character's name, but she was
June?
Not June, no. Her friend who escaped over to Canada, and she was free.
Oh.
She is like, she's lesbian, I think, or I don't know, she's into women, and she like takes a girl into the bathroom, and they start making out and like hooking up, and I remember thinking like, oh, if a girl came up to me and did that, I wouldn't stop it. And then
how old were you?
Thought was gone. I think I was like 22, probably.
Yeah.
So it's just, again, it's funny. You have those thoughts and then you don't associate them with your identity at all. Looking for more thoughts like that, I just don't think I was attuned to it at all. And I think a lot of my life I've felt disconnected from myself. I would actively try to disconnect from myself. So I think just being alone during the pandemic, like I wasn't able to escape myself anymore. So I think that's what was my problem with not realizing it.
We talk about this in later episodes, but one thing about all of this is really makes me realize, like, I feel like I spent my life in a way on autopilot. I was doing the motions of life, going to college, dating guys, graduating, partying in New York City, and I was resisting this urge that was there.
Well, once you realize your sexuality, it's hard to be on autopilot.
Yeah.
That's one of the gifts of it, is that you aren't just going to go down this path that everyone goes down because it's just what you do. You start to question it because you don't fit it seamlessly. You don't fit into it perfectly. And like, it can be mourned, like you can like mourn that a little bit, but as soon as you get over that, you realize it can be a little petty, these things that like everyone looks forward to, not to like diss it, but more so like you open your eyes to much greater things, and it's really freeing. But
that takes a while, right? So just kind of just to backtrack.
And you can backtrack on it. It's not linear. You're like your growth on it. You can like feel really sad about it one day.
Yeah, definitely. But to backtrack, when I first met you and we started dating in the fall of 2020, I was really loving it, but at the same time, I was really struggling, right? Like, I was trying to merge this past life and this current life, this past life of I'm Sophie, I've had boyfriends, people view me as that. That's who I am. And now, like, holy shit, like, I might love this girl. And that was so freaking weird.
And I don't think at this point I was super attuned to that, because
I don't think we talked about that.
We didn't talk about it because it was so much about like our relationship and like our ability to, well, my whole thing of like shutting down and like not letting you in. Like we had much more topical issues that we were dealing with when we first started dating.
Definitely had more issues in the first 3 months of relationship than we ever did after that.
Yeah, we didn't even have a honeymoon phase. We had a honeymoon phase for like 3 weeks, and then it was just like, all right, this is hard.
And then we had a honeymoon phase.
And then now I guess we're in it.
Reverse Benjamin Button style.
Well, that's a benefit of COVID relationship. I don't know who can relate, but you're just staring at each other in an apartment, so you kind of have to work through everything.
Yeah. But so you didn't know that. But my internalized homophobia definitely surfaced in our relationship.
Oh yeah, quite a bit.
There was like Daisy would be crying in Domino Park in Brooklyn over me being like, I still want to date men. Like, this is not an easy thing in our relationship.
No, and it's really hard to hear that really early on in a relationship, because you start to internalize it and think like, I don't know, I think early on in a relationship, like you're looking for validation from that person. I feel like once you get like more into your relationship, like you feel confident in it. But earlier on, when you're saying things like, oh, like I see that guy in the street, he looks like my ex-boyfriend, I wish I could run into him, like I miss him. Maybe I want to date a guy. Maybe I need to date a guy before I can realize that I'm confident dating you. And like that hurts to hear.
Yeah. And
that really hurts.
I know. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, you can't deny yourself.
Well, I think what was happening, right, was we were both going through this huge transformational process, but at the same time, we were new in our relationship.
And we were in different places.
Yeah. And this was, wait, what do you mean by that?
Well,
you weren't struggling with internalized homophobia.
No, I was struggling with other things, but it was also compounding your homophobia. Like,
yeah, and I think that those two things are really hard to coexist at the same time, because it's like, okay, we have to find space to fit all these things in. We have to find space for our relationship, for me figuring out my identity and internalized homophobia, and you navigating your sexuality, and you with your inner child trauma shit. Like, there was so many things happening.
There was no space. It was all filled up, and it was feeling exhausting. Then your parents finding out, that took up a lot of course that takes up a lot of space, but like, it was a lot of things.
We cried a lot.
It was we still cry all the time.
Okay.
It's the, hey, I need to cry today.
I'm gonna have to cut that one out. It's okay. No, it's okay. We won't cut that out. It's good to cry.
No, it's not a bad thing.
You release endorphins.
Yeah.
But that was hard. And I feel like from you maybe it's something you want to talk about, because how was that for you to deal with my uncertainty?
Well, so background on me, I'm an only child, and Sophie has a younger sister, so she was always an older sister. So she was so used to putting other people's feelings before her. And I think this is something I've always struggled with, because I spent so much time alone as a kid. I was always in my head. It was always like sorting through my problems. I never had space to even have room for other people's problems. So that was something that I did learn, like, because I love you so much and I care about you, so I would see how much you were hurting. It took me a while to learn. I can put, like, when I'm not feeling great, I can still put your feelings in the moment over mine, and then come back to mine later and fulfill them on my own.
But that was really hard.
That took
for you to realize.
I mean, that took like a year. That took a long time.
Yeah.
So.
And that was hard, because in those moments, I needed you to see my feelings.
Well, that's what we used to fight about.
Yeah, that's what we used to fight about.
Because you wouldn't feel loved by me.
Yeah, I didn't. Because I was feeling like, holy shit, like, I don't know who I am. I'm so upset because things going on with my parents. They're not accepting my relationship. I don't even know if I want to be with a woman. What if I want to date guys? And you're like, dude, right? And you weren't able to really, you weren't able to clearly handle that. I don't know what it was.
And that was always an insecurity of like, oh, Daisy can't handle this. Daisy can't handle that. So it was just like constant triggers back and forth.
And no plan to start talking all about our relationship.
No, we don't have to like go deep into this anymore. But it's also real, and like,
it's real. No, and I think that's something we're gonna talk about.
Yeah, and I mean, and it should be more normalized to talk about it, just because like, we do have a great relationship, but like, there's really hard times.
And the reason why we have such a great relationship is because we went through those things and communicated during them.
Well, we never hesitated.
We set the foundation.
We kind of just dove right in.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, those are hard times. And just so once we were officially dating, it was, I think we should talk about once we officially dating, like, that was really hard for me, particularly. It was hard for both of us, but it was really hard for me because I had so much internalized homophobia. And maybe I still to this day don't realize it. That what? How much internalized homophobia you have. How every minute it would like take up your brain. It would get to the point where like me and Daisy were flying to like Palm Springs, for example, and I was like insecure that you weren't tall enough to get the suitcase from up there, because if I had a boyfriend, he would be able to do that. Like, it was pervasive. And these things would really get to me, and I'd be like, I'm like 5'3", like 100 pounds. I'd be like trying to like grab it. I'm like, God damn it! Like, don't even look at me, tall guy. I'm getting this for my girlfriend, because these are things I can't necessarily change, and that's what would hurt me. Because I'm like, this is not who I am. And that was hard. And I'll break my back trying to get your suitcase down, but that was really hard for me. I mean, I was so used to, like, one of my ex-boyfriends was 6'4". I was so used to physically dating men who were tall and bigger and emotionally certain ways. Can't say the same thing. yeah, I was used to like this certain idea. I was used to a very certain idea of a man, a tall guy who fit the emblem of what every man in society is supposed to look like, right? Wears a suit, goes to work, like is a lawyer, is a doctor, is a investment banker.
This still like riles me up and makes me mad because, well, I understand like that's what you were looking for, but I'm like, why not me? Why not what I can have to offer?
Yeah, and that obviously, I mean, did that create a lot of insecurity for you?
Yeah, some insecurity. Yeah, and you would project those feelings onto me, so I would take up those insecurities of things that like never bothered me. I'd be like, oh, should I be worried about this? Should I want this? Like
one of the big
bouncing
ones,
back and forth. So that's kind of a waste.
One of the really big ones was like, shit, I'm not marrying a man who's going to provide for me. And then we had to backtrack. Like at this point, like I didn't know if I was marrying Daisy. I still don't know if I'm marrying Daisy. But the classic projecting to the future of like, okay, we all have tendencies of like, all right, I'm getting this relationship. What does this mean for me 5-10 years down the road? And I would envision like me and Daisy, like these two late women who are like 5'3", like in my head I would associate that with weakness and like hearing from my parents that like I wouldn't be able to have a real child. That hit hard. That's still, I mean, I've gotten much more, you know, I feel like maybe I haven't thought about it in a while. I'm more accepting of it, but that really hit hard, the idea of having to get maybe a sperm donor. That's something that we would stay up all night, like talking about of like, how are we going to have a family? What is it going to look like? And feeling like, honestly, there's a mourning process of like, where I'm like, wow, I can't share my genes with Daisy. Honestly, it makes it hard when it's like, I started to get in such in my head about it that I feel like I was losing attractive. I wasn't as attracted to you because I felt like you weren't a guy, which you're not, and you wouldn't be able to give me a child. And I would go through phases where I just felt unattracted to you. And that was my internalized phobophobia. And it would really come up after I came back home from being home with my parents where like something happened, there's a fight.
Holidays were always a nightmare.
Yeah. We literally went through 2 years of holidays and you already said that.
Well, you would like stop talking to me because you couldn't handle like thinking our relationship existed while you were in your parents' house. That's gotten better, but like that was like right after they'd found out.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about my parents in another episode, but it was really hard going home to my going home to my parents' house, but they didn't know I was dating you. That lasted for like I think 5 months. Finally, I told my sister, and then I told my mom, who promised not to tell my dad, and then of course told my dad. You know how it works with parents. And then it got to the point where it was just like I was home, and I couldn't. All of a sudden, this relationship life was gone when I got home, and I was back to Westchester Sophie life. You know, thinking about, whoa, maybe I should date a guy, and it's like these thoughts keep coming in. And I think something we haven't even talked about in a while, and something we haven't talked about this episode, it was like, something we haven't talked about this episode is that I am attracted to guys.
And so am I.
Right? Like, we both are. So that's what made this and makes this currently still difficult, is to manage to hold those emotions together of attractiveness, of they can coexist, because it doesn't. What makes it so hard is that because you, Daisy, my girlfriend, are so different than any guy in the street, it's hard to merge both of them. Because
it's not apples to apples.
Yes, of course. Like if you were my boyfriend, I could compare you to, I'd be like, oh, I'm not missing out on dating other guys because you are a guy. But when I'm dating another woman, it's like I am missing out because you are not a guy. And I have that attraction. So how can this is something I really, really spent so much time thinking about. Like, how can I be happy in my future marrying a woman if I'm never exercising and if I'm not, living, or what's the word? Like, I'm not letting that feeling of attractiveness like surface. I'm kind of like suppressing it towards men.
So a couple of questions. One, I understand like having a need to have multiple like emotional connections with people in your life. Like, do you see like having like guy friends fulfilling that, or are you talking like I need like romantic connections with men? Like, are you saying like I don't know how I could pick one side to stay with forever?
Yes, I'm saying that I can't imagine I couldn't. Past tense is important here because I feel differently now, but I couldn't imagine dating or marrying a woman because that my identity as straight was getting suppressed. And this is where I really with my therapist, I talk a lot about I didn't like identifying as a lesbian. I honestly didn't. I couldn't.
Well, it's not fitting.
But I didn't know if that was because I had internalized homophobia or if that because that wasn't true. And I later learned that it was because I felt like I was getting forced to suppress this part of me that liked men, that was important to me, and those relationships were real. You know, we just spent this whole podcast talking about the fact that this relationship I'm in, and you wouldn't even know that I had history or really liked guys.
Well, I think and
that was important to me.
I think, yeah, and I do think it's hard for people to hold two things in their head existing equally, aka being bisexual. It's hard to understand you can like this and you can like that. I don't think our society likes to hold two different beliefs in their head. They want to have it's A or it's B, it's red or it's black, it's green or it's purple. People want to be able to pick one and check it off.
Yeah.
And that doesn't exclude you or me considering our own sexualities.
Right. And yeah, people do. They want you to fit into one, and most of the time it's the straight box because that's what society wants, that's what society needs, that's what perpetuates this whole idea of the masculine man who takes care of the woman. That dates back to, even though people were gay in ancient Egypt, so it doesn't even date back that long, but it really does perpetuate that, and that's why it was so hard, especially coming from parents who say, "Oh, you're attracted to women, so is every woman. Every woman's attracted to women, so why would you just pick the guy? Why wouldn't you just pick the guy? Because that's you have a happier life. You have a safer life. You'd have a better life. You had real kids."
From what perspective? You know, that's from such a narrowed perspective of not realizing, if I decide to follow my feelings and design my own life, it can be so much more than you'd ever expected. And I think that's kind of what's happening right now to us.
Yeah. But in those moments, you don't have the space and autonomy to make a decision for you because someone like me who's so close to their family and so influenced by their family, I'm going to do what they want or what they think I should do because I don't know better.
Of course.
And that's something that still is hard, but it was really, really difficult to try to merge both lives, both identities. And it got to the point where I'd be walking in the street and I would drop your hand. How many times did I drop your hand walking?
Oh my God, so many times. We were at this West Village bar, and if anyone's been to the West Village, they know what it's like. And it's certain type of people I feel congregate there. So we were at this bar and we were sitting across from each other. We were outside. It was the martini. I don't know. It was a cocktail bar. And there was these two straight girls sitting next to us.
Oh, I remember this vividly.
And they were one of the girls was talking about how she was engaged to this guy, but she didn't want to move in with him yet because he might not, or he hadn't proposed to her yet. Yeah. She's like, I want to create a need for him to want, basically abiding by a construct that in order for a guy to be interested in you, you can't give him too much. And we were holding hands and you were listening to the topic and you were I need space right now. I can't.
I felt like
and tell me how you felt.
I felt like I felt like those girls are judging those girls who looked like girls like me and me fitting in this growing up. I always felt like I was looking to other girls to want to fit in and look like them.
Cool
we
girl.
all do.
Popular girl.
Popular, And I remember I'm like, oh, they probably think I'm so weird. I'm sitting with this girl. I wouldn't touch her hand across the table. I was so scared of what they thought about me.
Which is funny because if you ask them to this day, where were you January 5th at 9 p.m., they wouldn't even know that you exist.
They wouldn't know. And that goes to the other point, a larger point here of we spend so much of our lives in our heads about what other people think about us. When that person would get up, leave the table, and I'd be stuck with those fears, not them. They'd go to the next thing. Mm-hmm. No one's thinking about you as much as you think about yourself. That's
Nobody.
the one big lesson I've had from all this. I'll be walking in the street. No one, yes, people have called us names. Twin lesbian. No, what was it?
Friends for life.
Friends for life. This guy in Washington Square Park was like, friends for life. It's all right. I mean, we are friends probably for life.
For life.
But it's definitely hard.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I think, honestly, talking about this makes me remember how difficult it was, and it still kind of is, because right now we're at the point where I have a TikTok where I post about our relationship and my friends and my mom met you the other week, and
things we could never, ever imagine.
Things we could never, ever imagine. So,
and this primes us. Like, we've been able to work through some really, really hard things. And we'll never have to start from scratch working through those difficult things again. We've already made our way into this, like, working it out. And that's invaluable. That makes me feel really confident in my ability to work through difficult things, especially with you as a team. And it makes me really excited to see what life has for us as we do continue to listen to ourselves. And
and I think on a personal note, it makes me feel like I got through some really, really hard times the past few years, and here I am, happier than I've ever been, in a beautiful relationship, feeling like I'm going to pursue an authentic, real path with my job, potentially leaving, potentially starting something, moving. And in those moments of uncertainty and doubt and fear, you don't know that those are really the mixing, and what's really brewing is freedom and comfortability and a sense of understanding who you really are.
But that might, and to just go along with that, like, it might not feel good. I mean, there was today, like, we had a meltdown. Like, to be totally honest,
I like historically cried today.
Yeah, and it's quite like those, like, negative, scared feelings of trying to figure out what is next for you can be alongside feelings of, like, pure bliss and joy and excitement. But you can also have days where you doubt everything that you think that you want. But it doesn't mean that you'll get back up and
that's the importance
pursue the next thing.
Exactly. And that's the importance of not clinging to either of them, because you kind of have to just go along and take each day. And that's what's allowed me to minimize that internalized homophobia. And it's kind of accepting it. Accepting that this is where I am in my life. This is really hard. I have these fears, and now I'll happily grab your hand at a table, and, you know, I don't care who's looking at me. I don't care if the hottest guy in the room is looking at me, because I'm proud. And that is something that is amazing, but it's important to recognize that it could take time. And if you're going through that, if you're questioning your sexuality, if you're trying to navigate it, if you're in an amazing, happy relationship with a man or a woman, and you're trying to figure out all these different feelings and thoughts to you and your identity, just know that it takes time, and these feelings are speaking to you for a reason. So try not to suppress them. They mean something. And even if they're the most painful feelings of, like, fear of my life's gonna suck if I do XYZ, that's just telling you to listen to yourself and listen to, wait, what does this mean?
It's either you listen to yourself or you spend your entire life separating from yourself and trying to use different tools or distractions to get away from yourself. And you could die never having known what you really wanted because you never gave yourself the opportunity to listen to that.
It's like if I had listened to those fears of, oh, don't go and hinge because someone's going to see you, I would never be here.
Yeah, you got to silence that voice, and you have to let your voice, it's a muscle. You have to continuously work the muscle, and there's going to be days of, like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But you got to push past that and know that what's on the other side is strong enough for you to keep going and pushing through the uncertainty.
Yeah. This has been good.
This has been fun. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, I mean, it feels really good to just kind of, like, go back, talk about everything, and
reflect.
And it's so very prevalent to our life.
Oh, yeah. Very prevalent.
We hope you guys enjoyed our first episode, number 1.
Yeah, and if we're going to set up a way for you to write in questions or comments, anything like that. And we also want you to leave a review if you like this, share with your friends. And of course, subscribe, got to self-promote a little bit, but got to help us along. And we really want to include you all in the conversation. So it's really important to us to hear anything and everything on the topic that you want to talk about.
Like Daisy said, our goal is to include you guys in the conversation because we want to build a community here. We want to share our journey and help others.
Because we've struggled to find people like us.
Like-minded people. Finding like-minded people is very difficult. And we want to keep you guys involved.
Yeah. So again, look out for any updates. Just subscribe and you will get some more information from us.
All right, guys.
Thanks for listening. Until next time.